Hello SGD, and this will be, I suppose, a Christmas special, but especially for those, unlike I'm in the southern hemisphere, so it's all reversed, where our Christmas is summer, northern hemisphere winter. But the important point is the winter solstice. So uh, the sun moved each day, the sun would set or rise and keep moving south. And it gets colder and colder, the days get shorter and shorter in the northern hemisphere. Then on the winter solstice, for a 2 to 3 day period, the sun will appear to set in the same place for 2 to 3 days in a row. That's the winter solstice. And now the solstice is over, and the sunset will start migrating northward, and the temperatures will rise and the length of the day will lengthen. But how does that connect? So solstice, well, let's go to the famous 3 pyramids of the Giza plateau, Khentkawe, Khafre and Khufu. But the often overlooked part is Kentkawe's tomb, sometimes called Khentkawes's pyramid. And there you can see it there, and it's on of the structures, it would be the 4th largest, not including the Sphinx, but that's a sort of separate type of thing. But we have what you could call the 4th pyramid, or the 4th major object there on the plateau. Like, just by looking at it, you probably calculate the Khafre causeway and say it has more volume, more other things, but it is sort of the 4th, at least in a aesthetic aspect, and it's a very important feature. So I'll put a link in the description to a longer playlist I did a while ago talking about the larger design of the plateau and the larger meaning of it. So myself and others, it's not a new idea, but there is an underlying plan that unites the whole Giza site, including, so we have Khentkawe pyramid, Khafre pyramid, Khufu pyramid. There we see Khentkawes, but also features such as the Wall of the Crow. And I think that probably not the only one, but at least one of the most, if not the most significant survey points for the pyramid is where the Khafre Valley Temple meets the Khafre Causeway. Because there we have a series of alignments that essentially form a calendar, marking out the summer solstices, the equinoxes, and the winter solstice. I've got a playlist of videos unlocking the pyramids, and it's not just the Giza pyramids, it's the pyramids to the south, but whether it's Elephantine, Thebes, or Abydos, you will find a set of geometries, astronomical alignments, and units of measure that bring, so it's uniting the plateau but the wider Egyptian plan. So we'll strip all that away for a moment, and so there we have the 0 point. There's a door there where the Khafre Valley Temple opens to the Khafre Causeway, and that's what I believe is a 0 point based on measures and alignments. We also have the Wall of the Crow, which was the boundary. South of that was like a small city workers area, and then we have the 3 major pyramids, the Khufu Pyramid or Great Pyramid Causeway, and of course Khentkawes. Okay, so the Khufu Causeway is aligned 14 degrees north of true east. True east is equinox sunrise. Doesn't matter which of the equinoxes, east or west, will align to the equinox, but at 14 degrees it is halfway between the equinox and the summer solstice sunrise, which would be at 28 degrees north of true east. So it marks a halfway point. If we come to the Khafre Valley, or the Khafre Pyramid, the causeway, it is aligned 14 degrees north of true west, or vice versa with east, but it's 14 degrees off the east-west, just like the Khufu Causeway. So extend that down. It lies halfway between the equinox sunrise and the winter solstice sunrise. Khafre Causeway halfway between, Khufu Causeway halfway between summer solstice sunrise. Looking down the Khafre Pyramid Causeway to the east, it's halfway between equinox and winter solstice sunrise. Therefore, that angle going back will point to the summer solstice sunset. And that's an important feature because that angle is exactly spot on, right in between the Khafre Pyramid and the Khufu, or the Great Pyramid, right in between. And the summer solstice was Wet Perennet, I forget the pronunciation, but the Egyptian New Year. New Year's Day, summer solstice, and even technically what was new, because the summer, on the solstice, winter or summer, the sun will appear to rise and set in the same place for a 2 to 3 day period. But Egyptian New Year, three seasons in Egypt. The first season, 120 days, beginning with the New Year, was Arket. There's one of the older emblems, and this is a hieroglyph for it. The same thing, you have the sun. And you also have a palm frond rising above the palm frond. Generally, more often than not, is a reference to time. So it's marking the New Year. So there's the New Year hieroglyph, and there's a symbol for Arket. And so, for instance, there would be the 0 point where that door leads up the causeway. And on that day, from that site, the sun, summer solstice, will set directly in between the two pyramids, very much reflective of this Arket symbol. So Arket nicely follows appearance. Again, Egyptian New Year, beginning of the flood season. Strip everything away. What is Egypt? Egypt is the Nile. Everything that Egypt was or is from the Nile. The Arket, or the beginning of a flood season, was the pulse. So if you want to call it the main artery, the artery of Egypt is the Nile, and Arket is the pulse, the flood season, which brought the water and the silt and the nutrients which made Egypt possible. Now, again, all mentioned in that earlier series, so other features, but we have Khentkawè and we have Khafre. Ra, the sun god. Khufu did not have that epitaph. Khufu's full name was Khufu Khnum, and Khnum, or translated to Khnum, protect me. Khnum was the source of the Nile. Like happy was the flood. There many, the importance of the Nile was many gods, but Khnum was the source of the Nile from which the flood emerged. So there was a flood god, happy, but Khnum is essentially the same thing, the source of the Nile, where everything comes from. So while the other gods, other pharaohs typically connected to Ra or Ray, you'll see at the end of their name, Khufu is the Nile, source of the Nile. Khufu, protect me. And now directly west, from anywhere really, but from that 0 point, is the equinox sunset. Equinox sunrise would be to the east. Halfway between there, so we go another 14 degrees, reflecting that 14-degree angle. We're pointing to the Khentkawè pyramid, and that line would touch the pyramid. And just briefly, if you include the sockets of the pyramid, it creates a perimeter slightly larger than the actual pyramid perimeter, and that distance from the 0 point to Khentkawè pyramid is the perimeter of the pyramid, including the sockets, which is 1 to 43,200, the equatorial circumference of the Earth. But if you were to unfold Great Pyramid, including the sockets, that's the distance from the 0 point to where it touches Khentkawè pyramid, at the halfway point between the equinoxes and the winter solstice, which we've just gone through. Now the winter solstice, and just reflect that angle down, 28 degrees. So from the 0 point looking, we would find the summer solstice sunrise. Face the opposite direction, we get the winter solstice sunset, and that's why Khentkawè is overlooked, part of this larger plan. Shows how at least one of the main features of the design of the larger Giza Plateau, and of course Elephantine, Thebes, Abydos and some other places, we have very important astronomical alignments which mark out the seasons and the flood. And it just so happens that from that 0 point to the winter solstice, so from the 0 point, if you want to know 28 degrees south of east-west, just start from your 0 point and touch the corner, touch at the very corner of Kentkawe's pyramid. So Kentkawe's marks out the winter solstice. So this is from the Google Earth shot just after you walk out of the Khafre Valley Temple and would start making your way up the causeway. There we see Kentkawe's, and the winter solstice sunset would be nicely right there on that corner, Kentkawe's tomb, 28 degrees. But another very important feature of Kentkawe's, which links it to the larger plan, is that, so take that edge, this was off Google Earth, it's 7 degrees, unlike the pyramids which are aligned east-west, they're aligned to the 4 cardinal points. There is a twist in Kentkawe's design, and run that north at 7 degrees, which very closely, again I'm using Google Earth, I wish, if I'd need survey equipment and funding and all of that to be able to go to the site and do a very detailed, very as accurate as possible with the best tools, but run that north, and what happens is it points to the middle of the Great Pyramid where the entrance is, or very, very, very close to it, again with the best available tools at my disposal. So now we're linking Kentkawe's to the Great Pyramid and the entrance, and there's yet another feature, and that is the Wall of the Crow. The Wall of the Crow is not aligned east-west, it is 6 degrees from true east-west, and that is also reflected in Kentkawe's pyramid, and that just so happens, so this red line runs north, points north, and will run across the entrance or the center point of the Great Pyramid. The actual the entrance is just a little bit off, but again I cannot be absolutely precise, and run the southern line which runs parallel to the Wall of the Crow. So it's a bigger shot, and then we can see Kentkawe's tomb, pyramid, and the Wall of the Crow. They run parallel with one another, but if we extend that line from Kentkawe's, it comes and points to the center of the east side of Menkare's pyramid, and just like the Giza pyramid, or the Great Pyramid is 8-sided, Menkare's pyramid is 8-sided as well, which I think is an interesting feature. Wall of the Crow, Kentkawe's, Menkare, Great Pyramid, winter solstice we get from Kentkawe's tomb, and of course in the series I touch on many other things. There's also a Heliopolis series which unites these and many other pyramids down south as well. But from the 0 point to where it touches the northwest corner, marking the winter solstice, is, and I've done it before, you can double check on Google Earth, is 600 Egyptian royal cubits, or 314.14 meters. Oh, sorry, 314.159 meters. This is for the moment 600 Egyptian royal cubits. From the 0 point to where the Khafre causeway, because it stops, but that the distance between Khafre pyramid and that 0 point, 1,200 Egyptian royal cubits, exactly twice that amount. Other pyramids down south, such as Neferkare, Teti I, Merenenre, Pepi I, Pepi II, they all share the proportions of Khafre's pyramid, 3 wide, 2 high, but the ones in blue here all have the same dimensions, 100 Egyptian royal cubits high, or 1 chord, and 150 Egyptian royal cubits wide on the base, giving them a base perimeter of 600 Egyptian royal cubits, that distance to Khentkawes, or half of that to the Khafre pyramid. So here we have another view, and there is the doorway from Khafre Valley Temple, which leads directly up the causeway to the Khafre pyramid, and that's of course a Photoshop version where we have the sun setting directly in between Khafre and the Great Pyramid. That would be the Northern Hemisphere summer solstice, marking the beginning of Akhet, the flood season. Another interesting link, so there would be Khentkawe's tomb or Khentkawespyaramid pyramid, but from this point, which is just a lovely observation point. Now, the equinoxes, it's essentially can be done anywhere, but it's how these things come together, especially Akhet and the symbol of Akhet, just the literal season beginning there, and also that symbolism of those two pyramids. But another important feature I frequently try to highlight is that the Great Pyramid especially, but all pyramids are a three-dimensional object, and observed here from the 0 point, we see two sides of the pyramid. We see it as not a triangle, but as a pyramid. Again, I mentioned often that the surveys has slight variations on each side, so I have rounded it off to exactly 440 cubits on each side. The southern side there is the longest, the north side is the shortest, but again, just now for simplicity's sake, rather than going into all those details, 440 cubits on each base, 280 Egyptian royal cubits high. So in other words, we see the maximum visible base from the southwest, which is 880 cubits to 280 cubits high. And rather than the 711 giving us a half pi at 880 over 280, we can reduce that to 22 over 7, which is, for instance, Archimedes. That was his way of describing pi. It's not precise, but it is very close. So though in other episodes, videos, when I go into it, using the best survey data, this ratio actually comes in much closer. Actually, not much, I shouldn't say much closer. The approximate of pi is even more accurate, but that's one of the features there of observing, especially the Great Pyramid, because also the rather than the slope angle, the corner angle of a pyramid is 42 degrees, or a fraction, as in 1/100th of a degree, pretty much either side. But you could say the average would be 42 degrees, which is in itself pretty loaded. But okay, but that's pi. Okay, so, and I'll revisit it in the future because of the pi, the meter, and the cubit, and other these lovely geometric constants coming together through measurement and proportion, inside and outside. But so the maximum visible base minus the height is 880 minus 280 is 600 Egyptian royal cubits. As we just mentioned, the 600 Egyptian royal cubits being half the length from the 0 point to the Khafre pyramid. And just so happens that that works, 600 Egyptian royal cubits works out to be pi times 100 meters, which is another one of these nice connections, and so much more to go into that older episodes. I want to revisit, update them. But again, yeah, the winter solstice we've just gone through, from there would be to Khentkawes. From this 0 point with all the just the whole video will be, the whole series, playlist will be in the description. But also at that same place, that would be where the visualization of the summer solstice sunset marking the new year, again matching that the hieroglyph and other depictions of Akhet, the season. But Kentkawe's tomb pyramid, not as grand, not as spectacular. There are as a pyramid, so it tends to get overlooked. But it has to be by. There's a design there, especially if you consider these other features. It's one of these things that just works. And again, this concept of the larger complex having a larger design. So So just like with an individual temple where the smaller features equal the larger features, again I've covered that, like for instance in the Great Pyramid, the internal features have reflective proportions of the larger, but also the measurements of internal features are reflected in the larger proportions. This concept, skip forward to Vitruvius, previous video to this, was how exactly the same concept is a vital feature of Hindu architecture and temple design as well. And so just like the internal features of the pyramid reflect the larger features of the pyramids are smaller pieces of the larger complex design, and this is, again, it just works, whether maybe it was by accident, but the internal matches the external of the pyramid, and the Great Pyramid and these others as well come together to make smaller pieces which matches the whole of the larger complex therein. And again, linking in the description of a playlist, but in places we have Thebes, Abydos, Elephantine have all these similarities. Without doubt, the summer solstice was of vital importance, and with these, well, it just sort of works as well. And then you bring in the measurements, and these things were architectured, they were designed, and well, it's either just a symphony of coincidences, or it's again just showing that there was a larger design concept going on. And I don't think that's extreme or outlandish at all. I think it would actually be the other way around, that like they just sort of drop them randomly. These are exquisite, massive structures, and so especially when all the other features, it's Occam's razor would, they weren't silly people. They, even in the records in regards to the seasons, it just works. But with that solstice, so let's call that Santa's pyramid, because on the winter solstice, northern hemisphere, the days that lead up to the current 25th, just works again as well. So there's Santa's pyramid. There's many other connections there, links in the description. I should update those playlists and revisit some of these things, because it's easy to say, well, one feature, that's coincidence, but it's a symphony of coincidence with all these features, proportions, measurements, alignments coming together to show that this is part of a larger design concept. And these concepts that can be found on the Giza Plateau, again, especially in Thebes, it's just a poo-poo storm of all these things coming together, especially if you use the 0 point here, as I'm indicating, as the observation point, because the angles of Khafre and the Great Pyramid, which is Great Pyramid corner angle and the Khafre Pyramid slope angle, are again reflected in all those other places. That, I think it's episode 4 of the playlist, Unlocking the Pyramids. Anyway, that's the Christmas special, Kentkawe's tomb. Let's not overlook it. It's just as vital, and in the last few days it would be of intrinsic importance in ancient times. With that, SGD, Sacred Geometry Decoded. Have a good one.